well done on the precision of building this. I think it's fantastic. I'm interested to hear, about the story of the build, but also your shop and what you do
Okay.
is machining. Because while you were getting the meeting set up, I was going through your Instagram really in depth, and you've
Yeah.
got just a lot of fantastic things there. So, how did you get started in machining?
Well, I guess what I would say is, I'm going to date myself here, but my interest in things mechanical probably started in the mid to late 70s, right? Typical story of a lot of guys and gals, playing with Legos and stuff, right? And part of that dating is this goes back to when the wheels on Legos were real small and had little steel pin type axles that went into the blocks. Later they had the plastic axles and such. But it's funny because I was just thinking about this the other day. The train sets that you could get back then had tracks that you would put on the flat bricks, and you could make your own train, little train layout and all that sort of stuff. And of course, that grew into, I think eventually they had the techniques sets, but I think there was some expert sets in there for a while. But anyhow, playing with Legos and a lot of mechanical interests, monkeying around with cars, riding dirt bikes, four-wheelers, built or helped build as many as 4 sand rails, the dune buggy type sand rails and that sort of stuff. But my background is currently, well, for the last 28 years, I've been working for General Motors. My current role right now is what's known as a global technical specialist or engineering technical lead. So I lead technically, I support, I should say, a group of DREs, that's design release engineers, in what's called the air delivery team of global propulsion systems. So our team does all the intake manifold engineering and design. On turbo systems, we do resonators, charge air coolers, plumbing. We do engine appearance covers, NVH covers. We have a pretty wide bandwidth of components that we cover on, mostly on the top side of the engine. And my job role is to support all our engineers and designers and such, with being sure that we have the right technical solutions in place, all the proper documents as far as testing and validation specifications, the right materials, design best practices, statement of requirements for when we're sourcing parts to suppliers, being sure that we have the right capable and quality suppliers in place. And everything we do is on a global scale, right? Our team is spread across Europe. We've got team members in China, Korea, and currently Mexico and Brazil. We used to also support our holding team in Australia when we had that. So, it's pretty global. A lot of energy goes into it, as you can imagine. Kind of keeping our arms around all this stuff and all the designs for our engines and such. So I've done that for the last, well, that job role's been the last 5 years, but I've worked for General Motors for the last 28 years, starting out early on as a designer, back in the early to mid 90s, and prior to that. Going to really, like I said, date myself here, but prior to that, I wrenched on cars as an automotive technician for about 7 years. So just kind of always been around things mechanical, vehicles, repair, muscle cars, like I said, all the off-road stuff, boats, that's kind of where a lot of my interests are.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations on such a long career in engineering, and then to take your interests in cars and engines and make a career out of it. That's
yeah. It's pretty exciting. It's very interesting. It's a lot of good work. I kind of dabble a little bit with the 67 Chevelle I have that my wife and I will go out for rides and stuff, but the car kind of looks like an old grocery getter a little bit. The body hasn't been touched. and it kind of has an older look to it, but underneath it's just completely hot rodded, if you will. It's got Corvette C5 brakes, full tubular suspension, running a Ford 9-inch rear axle with the Daytona front bearing unit set up in there. I've got a reverse manual valve body, 204R, running a big block. It's the ZZ 454 engine and stuff. And, Willwood brakes out back, all the big sway bars and all that sort of stuff. So it gets down in boogies pretty good. It's a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. I saw, looking through your Instagram, some photos of some muscle cars. That's not necessarily my genre, but do you have a picture of that on your Instagram?
Yeah, it's probably way down. Is there a way I can screen share, right?
You can, or I can try and find it, either one.
Yeah, is that coming through okay on the screen?
Yep, I see your channel there, Moxie Engineering Machining.
Yeah, so let me, I actually, because I wasn't quite sure where we might go in discussion, so I had some example machining stuff, but I think I put a link here for the car. I can place that in here real quick. So here's some pictures here. That's the engine compartment. I don't know how many photos are here, just the two, I
That's
guess.
Beautiful.
It's kind of a work in progress, like everything else, but here's from the outside, right? It's got exhaust cutouts, so it makes a lot of noise, all that kind of stuff. Running big wheels because of all the big brakes around, all that sort of stuff.
Hey, that's beautiful car. That looks like a great accomplishment.
Yeah, thanks. We've had it for about, I guess, 21 years now. So we've had it for a while. But all kind of for its 50th birthday, I kind of did a total chassis and powertrain redo on it back in 2017 here. So that was a lot of fun.
Wow. Would you say that the cars really drive your interest in machining?
Yeah, I would say so. I actually kind of started really pulling together my machine shop after that build, then kind of leading up to them. I had welders and, grinders and, all the saws and stuff, but no, I didn't have a mill or lathe. So it was a lot of, just kind of cutting and hacking, if you will, that sort of stuff anytime I needed a bracket. So that project, I'd always thought about over the years and didn't necessarily have the room for it. And I kind of still don't, to be honest. But I had an opportunity to get my Bridgeport mill from a GM retiree that used to work with us. He wanted to sell it. So I was able to pick up the mill off him. I've since done a lot of upgrades and things to it. The mill is interesting because it actually came out of a tech education portion of a high school. So, you can see where the kids maybe beat on it here and there with a ball peen hammer type dumb stuff. But the reality is, the scraping on it and the ways and everything, the machine's good and tight. It doesn't have, what I would say probably a lot of hours on it. It could certainly use a paint job and those sort of things, but it's proven to be a real good machine for me. And then about a year later, I had an opportunity to pick up the Clausing lathe. I have some friends that deal and use machinery and such, and he knew that I was looking for a lathe, and one came up as an opportunity, actually not too far from my house. So I was able to make a deal with him and go pick the lathe up. So I have the mill and the lathe. And probably, the big thing I feel that I'm probably missing would probably be a surface grinder. That would probably cover everything that I probably need here.
Well, there's always that next tool, right? There's always that next level.
Yeah, I was just telling a friend of mine here the other day, the reality is I'd really like to have 3 Bridgeport mills, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because the setup between, pulling off a vise, putting on a big rotary table or putting on a tilt table and all that stuff, it it takes a lot of time and energy to make these changeovers. In my mind, if you had 3 mills, one for a vise, one for a rotary table, and then one for angular type setups and stuff, you know, it would just make things go quicker. But you know, it's an expense, and I don't have room for these things. My workshop's only 24 by 40 overall, but the rest of it is not heated. My little machine shop here is on the order of 12 by 16 overall, so it's pretty small. I'm pretty packed in here with a lot of tooling, and you know, trying to fit toolboxes and workbenches, but just really bursting at the seams, really.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can understand that. I saw some pictures of the Bridgeport. Do you mind pulling one up
Um,
on
yeah,
your Instagram?
yeah. If I can, let me see. I don't know if
I think I saw a few of them. And while you do that, you know, old machines to me are just so interesting, especially the history. So to hear that this was used by students, trade students learning how to machine, and
Yeah,
that was owned by a GM retiree, that's some fantastic history.
yeah, yeah. I, you know, I feel the same way. I kind of like some of the older machines. You know, I've really thought kind of long and hard at times about, do I want to go full CNC and such? And, you know, for the unique setups to make one part, I don't know that route necessarily makes sense. You know, I'm kind of just, you know, sort of custom making everything on the fly type of thing. So I'll probably just stick with the older hardware, I think. Is this coming through on the screen okay?
Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
that just fine. And that makes a lot of sense to me. You know, I've got a CNC that we do our tooling, all of our tooling for our parts on.
okay,
And, you know, you might have a simple job where you just have to, you know, face something or do an operation like that. And it's like, oh
yeah.
boy, do I really want to go through the whole workflow of CNC just to do that simple operation?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You know, I should have stated right up front that I am not a machinist. Okay, you know, I'm kind of more of a designer, engineer is my background. You know, product design and all that sort of stuff. I did have a semester of machining. You know, way back community college, kind of working on my first degree in life there. But I am certainly not what I would say a skilled or experienced machinist. I get a lot of input and support from some of my friends, and we talk a lot about how to do stuff. But the way I look at the tools, having the equipment, you know, whether it's you know, the bench grinders or, you know, hand power tools, all that sort of stuff, is it's just really a tool to get me towards, you know, the goal of, you know, the different aspects of completion on these projects, right? So, you know, Bridgeport, Lathe, can I use them? Yeah. Can I, you know, am I novice at best? Probably. But you know, I'm always learning and you know, trying to play with different things to get good finishes and that sort of stuff. So it's a lot of fun. You know, I enjoy it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know where you're coming from. We know just enough to get the job done, but
Yeah,
probably not how to do it right, you know,
right.
and a machinist. But it's a whole lot of fun. I mean, I enjoy my time at a machine too.
Yeah, it's a good hobby. It keeps you out of trouble, I guess.
Yeah, and boy, what a great skill to be able to manipulate metal and to make things out of metal. I really enjoy that part of what we do at Maker Pipe, and it's
Yeah,
neat.
yeah, yeah. I really like the product that you guys have. I know we'll get to the lathe frame here, but you know, it's kind of interesting. I wanted to build that frame primarily or originally as a kind of a chip guard or backstop, if you will, but later even more so to hold my light over the top of it. You know, as you get older, your eyesight isn't always so good, all these sort of things. And I had the light hanging on a chain, and when I had the ceiling fan going, it just kind of drive me bonkers after a while, to be honest, with the light kind of swinging around and stuff. So I sat on that project building that for probably a year or better. And like I've even heard some other people say on some of your YouTube and stuff, you know, I was thinking about using, you know, like that 40/40 aluminum channel, that sort of stuff. And I guess I primarily, well, okay, method is maybe a little pricey, but I was familiar with it because when I go out to our suppliers or our manufacturing sites and such, that's used quite often for assembly cells and all that sort of stuff, right? For making these
machine building, that kind of thing.
yeah, kind of the modular assembly stations or leak check stations, all those sort of things. So I, had been eyeing that over time for a long time, but I just kind of stalled out because I didn't feel like spending the time to machine brackets to secure it to the lathe, right? So I kind of tripped across Maker Pipe. I think I was listening to the Business of Machining, with Saunders and Grimsmo there, and I think a podcast that there was just kind of a mention of it, and I thought, well, that sounds interesting. I'll kind of take a look at that, and I looked into it, and I got to looking at your kind of the T or 90-degree fittings. And I thought, boy, with just a little bit of revision, I think I can, probably connect those to the chip tray on the lathe. And, so I kind of put together my plan. I'll show you here. I've spent 20 plus years on Unigraphics, NX and stuff doing design work, but sometimes it's just easier to do it on PowerPoint, right? Because you can just do it quickly, and I don't necessarily need a 3D model. So this was kind of my original SketchUp for the lathe, just to get a feeling for what fittings I needed, so I could go ahead and place the order with you guys. So I had that. I certainly revised it a fair amount once I kind of got into it and thought about some other ideas that I wanted to do. But that's how I kind of got going with the Maker Pipe, and I think it worked out awesome. I really like the product you have. The fact that you can just run down to Home Depot, Menards, whatever, pick up some EMT. It's pretty simple. I haven't done it yet, but I have a couple of sections that I'll probably need to take back apart to make some changes and put back together. And it's pretty easy to recognize. It'll come apart pretty easily and go right back together. So that's a nice feature too.
Well, great, Shawn. I'm glad that you found it useful. And when I saw your build, I'm a fan of old machinery. I had an old Atlas lathe myself, and I was immediately drawn to your build. But I could tell that you really planned it out and thought a lot about how it would mix with your process and the machine and everything go together. And here you are showing the plans, that definitely evident of that. And the way that it's neat to hear that story, because it was one of the most striking things was how you attached it to the chip tray, just clamping on a little bit of modification to the connector. And I loved that. I thought, oh, what a wonderful solution. So easy for you to mount it to that chip tray.
Yeah. Oh, I can, if I can get the camera flipped around and over there, I'll kind of show you, pretty quickly how I did that. But the chip tray, the way that was, made back then, that lathe, I think, it's a 1971, but those, the chip tray, the edge of it is rolled over kind of, the easiest example I think of is kind of like the rolled edge on a wheelbarrow tray. Where it kind of looks like it's a pipe, but it's really just the sheet metal that's folded and rounded over. So it gave me a nice round feature to secure, the Maker Pipe connection onto there, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. So you're saying that you might be able to show us in person with the camera?
Yeah. Let me see if I can do that. I don't know if I can. See if I can figure out how to flip this around.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. And Shawn, I'm going to try and take your share off here, your design off here, so we can see it a little bit bigger.
Okay. Yep. I just stopped.
Perfect.
Okay. I'm going to kind of look back at the monitor across the room there, but anyhow, you can kind of see how you've got the rolled edge here, kind of like a wheelbarrow construction. So, obviously if it was a pipe, the Maker Pipe fitting would just, just go right on there like EMT or whatever. But I used your adapter bushings there. And then on all four connections, all I had to do was cut off just this much, right? Because you can't have it reach around through the wall on the chip tray, of course. And I just left a little bit of tang. I just added additional wrap on there just to kind of conceal the fact that, you know, the kind of the puzzle pieces are there. But oops, got to turn the camera here a little bit. But anyhow, that worked out real good. Just removing those pieces. I lost the fourth one, and that's how I secured it. These ones on the left side of the lathe are coming in horizontally, just because of kind of the design, if you will, the way I needed the frame to kind of get around my controls. I did a short 45 here, sorry, so that I could, you know, still maneuver that shift lever there and such. But that worked out good, bringing these in horizontal. And then on the other end, I just came in vertically. I had no reason to kick it out further. I can still, you know, access the tailstock and everything here just fine. I did run power through the EMT. You know, I saw on your review that you noticed that. I just have a pigtail here plugged into the wall. So I bring in the power up through the bottom of the box, ran it up through the conduit, and then let me see if I can show it here, but I came out of the back of the conduit. I'll walk around to the other side.
Yeah, I know sometimes I forget that you can run wires through conduit, which just seems silly.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's meant for. But so that's what I did. I just brought the wire up through there. I adapted one of your caps, you know, to a wire crimp connection there. I've got it tethered here just so it doesn't get yanked on. And then, of course, it goes over to the light, you know, that I got mounted across the top. And by the way, Dave, I want to point out that, you know, the frame, you know, the maker pipe in the frame is very sturdy. If I grab the ends and try to kind of torque it back and forth, I mean, it's very stiff and sturdy. The reason when I move it like this, the reason I have the movement is actually just the play in the chip tray itself. But on the back side here, I'm trying to look around the corner to see if that's coming in okay. But, you know, I had to clear all the hydraulics, the electronics and the hydraulics for the variable speed and stuff on the lathe. So got that tied into the chip tray. The backstop, I debated about, you know, using a panel, composite panel like HDPE, or even just some thin wood or something. And I was at the builder store and remembered about the corrugated material. And I thought, well, that might kind of just brighten things up, and I can easily kind of bend it and shingle it in so it'll kick the chips, you know, into the tray. And so I don't end up on, you know, back on the floor with so many chips here. But, you know, around on the front side, it does add a lot of brightness, right? If I would have went with a black HDPE or something, you know, it just kind of dims things down. So this, you know, again, with my aging eyes and, you know, looking for dropped parts or tools or whatever, it really helps. So the other feature that I did that kind of wasn't in my design originally, I was going to build a shelf across here for putting the tooling and stuff, but I use these plastic trays kind of all over the place in my toolboxes and such. They come in all these different sizes. I don't know if you have Dollar Tree stores in your area, but those trays are $1 a piece at Dollar Tree, except for the small ones are two for $1. So they're relatively inexpensive, and I can show you here that I use them all over these trays.
Oh, wow.
And they only cost $1, and they fit pretty nicely in the toolboxes and such. But I got the idea here that, well, if I just run 2 pieces of conduit, I can just kind of rely on the lip of the tray here, and I can put them in there. I've kind of reorganized them a couple of different times, but they just sit right in there, and they seem to carry the weight okay. In fact, what I do a lot of times, I always like to keep my tooling kind of put away, but in the course of a job, while I'm doing multiple cuts, maybe multiple pieces, I then take my tool holders and stuff, and I just put them up here while I'm doing that project. I just keep them right there in the tray, which was sort of my original idea, to have a shelf. And then when I'm done, I just put them back in the toolbox there. So
Yeah, they
that,
must be strong if they hold multiple tool holders. That's great. That's a great
yeah,
idea. So Dollar
yeah,
Tree is where you get those trays. Great.
yep, yep. I've had, I've had a half dozen of these up here, and it's, if they sat over there over time and a hot day and stuff, maybe you'd get some deflection, but by definition, plastic always creeps. But for what I'm doing here, it seems to work fine. I haven't worked out all my lathe chucks yet. I think I'm going to print some holders to just put them here on the MT. Otherwise, they're just kind of thrown in the tray there. And then the other thing I haven't gotten to, I've been on the fence about doing a DRO on the lathe. I seem to get by pretty well with the verniers and my dial indicators and such on here, but I may do a control panel here, maybe even if it's just for the lights, but possibly eventually a DRO. I like building these panels like this one right here that I've got on the mill, so I can have a tachometer and my lights and all that sort of stuff, and I've got the VFD drive and that sort of stuff. So
Oh, that's neat. You got the
yeah,
VFD right there in the panel. Yeah,
yeah,
that's smart. I saw that one, and then one you did for a drill press as well was really a nice addition
yeah,
with the light.
yeah. That's this project. It's still kind of a work in progress here. This is kind of my crazy drill press project here, but same deal. Control panel here. The electronics are pretty straightforward, but I'm running a multitude of voltages here on different buses. I got 3, 5, 12. I think it was 24, and then I'm running 90 volt, all DC. The motor, I've got a ball door 90 volt motor on here. All the electronics are complete. I just need to connect the wiring to all the sources. I built my own clutch unit here because I'm doing a timing belt drive and I'm packing the rest of the electronics up here under the cover. But yeah, it's really just a modified drill press. But what this is meant for is it just kind of drives me bonkers to have washers that are always so loose fitting. So I find that I'm often, for example, I'll take a 1/4 inch washer, whether it's stainless grade 8 or whatever, and I'll machine it out so it fits more snugly on a 5/16 fastener, for example. But the problem has been I'm always doing it on the lathe. Well, a lot of times on the lathe, I got another project going. So it causes me to get into a teardown on a setup and then reset it up. And so this was kind of my idea to make a little machine that I can just do fastener work. And I'm also going to set it up so I can cross drill bolt heads and stuff for doing safety wire type stuff. So, somebody will probably say, well, why didn't you just buy a mini mill? I could have, but then I guess I wouldn't be doing this project. So, that's part of it. Sometimes is just making a project out of it, I guess.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And then I might as well show you here because I think maybe you want to talk about the squares, but here was another recent project I did. This is a dial indicator type height gauge or comparator gauge. It's a Federal. And I've got a few of these that I've refurbished, but this one here I decided to turn into a tap stand. And, it's maybe a little over the top because I got a light on here, LED light with even, if you can see here, an indicator light to indicate that the light's working in the event that you can't figure it out that it's working. So some things that don't really need to be there feature wise, but it's just fun to kind of do these things.
Oh yeah, no, that looks fantastic. I saw for smaller taps. I mean, this is just essential to have that sort of stable platform.
Yeah, when you're doing small parts, some stuff it's just too small and kind of silly to try to do something on the mill or the drill press or whatever. So, if you're tapping size 10 or under, especially the small stuff, no reason not to just do it by hand, with something like this.
That's fantastic. You got a beautiful shop there.
Yeah, thanks. Like I say, it's kind of small. Kind of zoom around here for a minute. I'm heavy into the, keeping everything kind of. I'm not necessarily a neat freak, but I can't stand when I can't find a tool. So I try to always put things back pretty neatly and keep it clean and kind of ready to go for, for the next thing. And, just getting into, all the organization, sockets and screwdrivers and
Wow.
all that
Nice
kind of
work.
stuff. But this, so this was the other, I think, point of interest. If you can kind of see here, I posted this on your website, but I'm getting ready to make a cart, actually, oddly enough, just very similar to the one that you just recently reviewed, that kitchen cart. But a friend of mine who's also using the maker pipe and I were talking about, it might be kind of nice as you're kind of building and going along to, get everything squared up, to have some kind of tools or template type devices to do that. And I suggested to him that, well, I thought we could just take some builder squares and just machine them out to, to fit around the fittings on there. You can kind of see how that fits into this area. And he kind of beat me to the punch and machined his out. And then I finally got to doing my, my two here. I just took some aluminum builder squares, Yeah, so I just made two of them because I thought for on the insides, maybe I if it's too long, it might interfere with the other fittings and stuff. So I haven't used these yet because I haven't got going on my next project to build the cart, but I can imagine as kind of building it up, how you can maybe make sure as you tighten things down that everything's kind of squared up and ready to go. These were just some relatively inexpensive, I think they're $8 or something, but some builder squares that I just kind of machined up on the mill there, and we'll see how that works for us here.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great tool, because the way that the 90s work, the inside is a little bit acute, and then the outside is a little bit wider, with them pulling in as you tighten. So depending on how you tighten, sometimes it might not be in the square. So I could see those really coming in handy if you need it to be at a perfect 90 degrees.
Yeah, I added some black tick marks here just as a reference, a visual reference to know that, that you're kind of fully inserted, if you will. Not, you can see it from the side easy enough, but I just thought that might be something that just might kind of ease the assembly. I mean, the reality is it's very easy to do, right? I mean, the stuff goes together very, very nicely and such, but I just thought this might be a nice aid for the next project. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah. Well, I could tell by the photos of your build and that you're into machining that stuff is important to you, which I certainly appreciate. I saw photos of you bending the conduit to a 90 degrees and then checking it with the square. So, well done on the precision of building this. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My wife kind of says, at times I'm too much of a perfectionist, and I argue that I'm not a perfectionist. I'm just very particular about how I like things. So sometimes I know when to throw in the towel and not get too carried away. But, other times you want to have things right and done, at least in your mind, how you want it done. So yeah, it's just part of it, I guess.
Yeah, well, it shows in the final project and product. I love what you did there, and thanks for taking time to bring us into your shop and show me what you did and talk about it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's no problem. I was glad to have the opportunity to do this.
Yeah. Is there anything I can do for you? I mean, I appreciate your time.
No, I don't think so. I think I'm in pretty good shape here. I'm certain with high confidence that I'll continue using maker pipe as projects come along where we can use it. I have a friend who's in the process. He built himself a printer stand, and he's going to make a further little roll around table with the maker pipe. So between at least a couple of us here, we're coming up with some ideas for use, and it's working out pretty nicely.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad to hear it, Shawn. And if anything comes up in the future, just let me know. We're here for you. We want to help you, complete your next project, and we'd love to see them when they're done.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
Oh, not a problem at all. It's just part of it. But thanks so much for your time and getting on here with me, Shawn.
Okay,
All right. Thanks.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Bye. We'll see you later.
Bye.